American seniors.
Well, here we are again.
So this is Rondell.
Hey, so what'd you do all summer, Danny, huh?
What'd you do this summer, Sandy?
In 1978, Grease became America's favorite musical. But there was one scene that never made it to theaters. It cost Paramount over $200,000 to film. The producer called it the Martin Scorsese scene because it felt so dark and violent. The scene was so intense, it made people forget they were watching a musical. Studio executives panicked. They said it didn't belong in their happy movie, so they buried it. Here's what happened in the scene that was too raw for 1978 audiences. Grease didn't start out the way most people remember it. Back in 1970, Jim Jacobs, who once lived the greaser life in Chicago, and his friend Warren Casey decided to write something that felt raw and real. What they created wasn't a sweet love story. It was bold, loud, and full of sharp edges. Their version of Grease opened on February 5th, 1971, in a small Chicago nightclub called Kingston Mines. They only had about $200 to pull the whole thing off. $70 of that went to a beat-up 1951 Chrysler they nicknamed Greased Lightning. The rest of the show was full of street talk, cursing, fights between different neighborhoods, and rough jokes. The characters were Polish-American teens from working-class Chicago, and the way they spoke felt like real life. They didn't hang out at beaches like in later versions. They went to places like Foster Beach. And instead of the T-Birds, the gang was called the Burger Palace Boys. It wasn't shiny or polished, but local people loved it because it was honest. As one critic put it, they were real. Then, in 1972, two New York producers, Ken Weissman and Maxine Fox, saw the show and realized it had potential, but only if it was changed. They offered Jacobs and Casey a deal, but with conditions. The language had to be cleaned up. The violence and dirty jokes had to go. The romance needed to become the center of the story. By the time Grease opened on Broadway on June 7, 1972, at the Broadhurst Theater, it was a totally different show. They added new songs. The characters were no longer clearly Polish-American. Most of the rough stuff was taken out, and yet it became a huge hit. It ran all the way until 1980, 3,188 shows in total, which made it the longest-running show in Broadway history up to that point. Big names like Barry Bostwick, Carol Damas, and Adrienne Barbeau were in the original cast, and over time, future stars like Peter Gallagher, Patrick Swayze, and even John Travolta stepped in. John Travolta didn't just show up and take the role of Danny Zuko, he shaped it to fit his own image. After his breakout hit Saturday Night Fever in 1977, Travolta had power. Producer Robert Stigwood offered him the part as part of a 3-movie deal, but Travolta said yes only if they rewrote the role. He didn't want Danny to be too harsh or rough like the Broadway version. He wanted him to be more charming, more of a heartthrob. This wasn't just about creativity, it was a smart career move. Another star, Henry Winkler, had been offered the role first, but turned it down because he didn't want to play another leather jacket guy after Happy Days. He later said he regretted that choice. Travolta also pushed for Olivia Newton-John to play Sandy. He said she was the dream girl that everyone liked. Olivia Newton-John wasn't even planning to act again. After her first movie flopped in 1970, she almost gave up, but in 1977, she ended up at a dinner party hosted by Helen Reddy, where she met the movie's producer, Alan Carr. He was still searching for someone to play Sandy. They had thought about Carrie Fisher, Susan Day, Marie Osmond, even Anne Margaret. But when Carr saw Olivia at that party, something clicked. Olivia was 28 and worried she was too old to play a teenager. She even asked for a screen test, but to make it work, she agreed to a lower salary in exchange for star billing and the chance to change her character's background. Instead of being American, Sandy became Australian, so Olivia wouldn't have to fake an accent. That tiny detail changed everything. Stockard Channing played Rizzo, one of the boldest characters in the film, but she was 33 years old at the time, and that made her the oldest cast member playing a high school student. She had to fight hard to get the role. She beat out big names like Carrie Fisher, Lorna Luft, and Lucy Arnaz. The director, producer, Randall Kleiser, was so worried about their ages that he made the actors go through something called a crow's feet test, a close-up to see if they looked too old on camera. For Channing and others, they softened the focus on their faces during filming to hide the lines. But Channing had something special. She could show the pain behind Rizzo's sarcasm, and when the producers wanted to cut her big song, "There Are Worse Things I Could Do," she fought to keep it in. That moment became one of the most emotional parts of the movie, and nobody questioned her age after that. Jeff Conaway's story is full of strange twists. He was born on October 5, 1950, in Manhattan, and started acting when he was just 10. He was in a Broadway play in 1960, and later, in 1972, he played Danny Zuko in the original Broadway run of Grease. But when it came time to make the movie in 1977, he didn't get to be Danny anymore. That role went to Travolta. Instead, Jeff became Kenickie, Danny's right-hand man. The director said the reason he got the part was because of the strong chemistry he had with Stockard Channing during auditions. But here's something even more surprising. Jeff was married to Rona Newton-John, Olivia's sister, so they were a real-life family while playing friends on screen. Jeff also had a music background. He'd been in a band called 312 when he was 15. That helped him fit right into the rock and roll greaser vibe. The rest of the cast came together through huge open auditions in 1977. The team wanted actors who didn't feel fake or too polished, just people who could bring the 1950s to life. Didi Khan, who played Frenchie, stood out because she could sing live and use slang that felt natural for the time. She had already done a film earlier that year, but her singing voice in it had been dubbed. In Grease, her charm came through fully. Dinah Manoff, who played Marty, also came from the open calls. But here's the surprising part. Most of these teenagers were actually in their 20s and 30s. To make them look younger, the filmmakers used camera tricks, soft lighting, and careful makeup. Still, what made it all work was how the actors got along. Their chemistry was so good that a lot of their improvised lines stayed in the final version of the film. When filming for Grease started on June 27, 1977, nobody was ready for what hit them first. It wasn't a broken camera or a script delay. It was the heat. That summer, Los Angeles was boiling. At Venice High School, where many early scenes were shot, the heat didn't just make people sweat, it melted the makeup off John Travolta's face. During dance scenes, his foundation would run like paint under hot lights. The crew had to stop filming over and over again, wiping him down, fixing his face, reshooting the same scenes. It got so bad, they had people standing by with towels and fans just for his face. The makeup team couldn't keep up. All of this added extra days to the shoot and pushed the budget higher. Tempers flared. Everyone was exhausted. Then came the garage scene. The famous greased lightning number was filmed inside a real auto shop, but real tools and real chaos don't mix well. The actors started getting too excited. They played with wrenches, air tools, and anything they could get their hands on. Jeff Conaway, who played Kenickie, got badly hurt when someone dropped him during a dance move. He messed up his back so badly that it started a painkiller addiction he never escaped. John Travolta didn't get away clean either. A wrench flew through the air and hit his hand hard enough to draw blood. He needed stitches. Camera gear got knocked over. Thousands of dollars in tools were broken. The insurance company refused to pay because none of this was in the script. Legal trouble followed, dragging on for months. But the worst came during the Thunder Road race. In July 1977, the team went to shoot the scene in the Los Angeles River. Normally, the concrete riverbed is dry in the summer, but out of nowhere, storms hit the San Gabriel Mountains. The dry river turned into a flood. Cars were swallowed. 3 were destroyed completely, costing the production $45,000. The stunt drivers had trained for weeks on dry ground. But now, everything was soaked and dangerous. Locals tried to sneak in and watch, or even drive through the river, forcing the team to bring in security. What should have taken 2 days ended up dragging out for over 2 weeks. The whole schedule schedule fell apart, and then Olivia Newton-John had to suffer through one of the hottest shoots of all. Her final outfit, the tight black leather pants and jacket, looked great on camera, but they were torture in real life. The pants were so tight they had to be sewn directly onto her underwear. No zippers, no breaks. It was 100 degrees outside, and she was stuck in leather for over 12 hours. She couldn't eat. She couldn't use the bathroom. She couldn't even walk without help. Between takes, they iced her face and poured cold water on her clothes just to stop her from fainting. She lost 6 pounds in water weight that day alone. The inside of that costume reached 115 degrees. Years later, the outfit sold at auction for $405,700, but on that day, it felt like a prison. When the movie was finally done, the premiere was a big deal, but not just once. Grease actually had 2 major premiere events. The first was on June 4th, 1978, at Mann's Chinese Theater in Los Angeles. The second was on June 16th, 1978, at Avco Cinema Center. Paramount went all in, spending $200,000 extra just to throw a second party. Celebrities showed up, even ones not in the movie. John Travolta was so burned out from promoting the film that he almost didn't go. They had to promise him a trip to Hawaii and book him a private jet just to get him there. Before the movie even hit theaters, something wild happened. The soundtrack came out on April 14th, 1978, 2 months early, and it exploded. It sold over 8 million copies in just 1 year. That made it the second best-selling album of 1978. Only Saturday Night Fever sold more, and that also had Travolta. The hit song, You're the One That I Want, went to #1 in 16 countries at the same time. Olivia Newton-John was so nervous when recording it that it took her 23 tries to get it right. The soundtrack alone made 28,8 million before the movie even made its first dollar. That money paid for the entire marketing campaign. The movie opened on June 16, 1978, and made $8.9 million in its first weekend across 862 theaters. But here's the twist. Grease still came in second place. Jaws 2 beat it. Still, Grease broke every musical opening record. In just 19 days, it had made over $40 million. The budget was only $6 million. They earned all that back in just 3 days. After 66 days, the movie had made $100 million. It became Paramount's second biggest hit after The Godfather. By the end, it earned $341 million worldwide. Critics weren't kind. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, but called it plastic. The Los Angeles Times said it was messy and dull. The Washington Post called it ugly, but regular people didn't care. The audience loved it. Rotten Tomatoes still shows higher ratings from viewers than critics. Some critics even changed their minds years later. In 2018, The Guardian gave it 5 out of 5 stars and called it a rush of joy. The gap between critics and fans became so famous that film schools now use Grease as a case study. When the film opened in the UK in September 1978, things got even crazier. It made $2.2 million in its first 8 days. That had never happened before for a musical. It ran for 14 straight weeks in London's West End. British fans loved it so much that theaters added midnight showings. People would sing along out loud during Greased Lightning, so theaters had to post signs asking people to stay quiet. Even crazier, Grease merchandise outsold Star Wars merchandise in the UK for 6 months straight, even though Star Wars was still playing. The movie didn't just succeed in Britain, it took over. Back in 1978, Grease became a global hit. But there was one scene that could have changed everything. It was filmed after the movie had already wrapped and cost Paramount over $200,000. That's almost $1 million in today's money. The producer, Alan Carr, called it the Martin Scorsese scene because of how dark and intense it felt. It showed Rizzo and Kenickie in a brutal fight about her pregnancy, but it didn't match the fun and bright tone of the rest of the film. It felt more like something out of Taxi Driver. So even though it was powerful, they cut it. Carr later said, "It was very good, but it had nothing to do with our movie." While all this was going on, another strange thing was happening behind the scenes. John Travolta, who played Danny, brought his Scientology beliefs to the set. During the drag race scene in 1977, director Randall Kleiser got a bad foot infection from the dirty water. Travolta said he could heal it using a Scientology technique called touch assist. Kleiser was burning with fever as Travolta touched his foot and did his ritual. But it didn't stop there. Scientology advisors were also influencing parts of the script, trying to take out anything they didn't like. They even tried to remove scenes with teens smoking. But Travolta was becoming a big star, so the crew had to find a way to keep him happy without ruining the 1950s rebel feel. Olivia Newton-John had her own struggles. She was 29 years old, already nervous about playing a high school girl, and she didn't expect what happened. During the big carnival scene, where Sandy wears the famous black leather outfit, she was harassed by a cameraman. He made nasty remarks about her body and how she looked in the costume. The moment she stepped out of her trailer, people went wild, but it wasn't always respectful. Alan Carr later admitted the crew lost control when they saw her. What should have been her big moment felt uncomfortable instead. Jeff Conaway, who played Kennedy, was 26 and gave it everything he had during the greased lightning scene. But he twisted his back badly. He had to take painkillers just to keep going. That injury started something dark. Over the years, he became addicted to pills, then alcohol, and even cocaine. By 2008, he was on a show called Celebrity Rehab, telling the world it all began with Grease. His manager said the pain was the reason he never fully got clean. Jeff died in 2011 at just 60. The tough guy from the movie was hurting more than anyone knew. Stockard Channing, who played Rizzo, was the oldest main cast member. She was 33, playing a teenager. Hollywood critics didn't hold back. They said she was too old and wouldn't be believable. The pressure got so bad that producers made her go through special makeup and lighting tests to make her look younger. Stockard said she felt like an outsider on set, like a 35-year-old lost among kids. She also had romantic scenes with Jeff Conaway, which made things even more awkward for her. Jeff once said he felt strange getting close to a married woman who was older than him. But in the end, Stockard's strong performance won everyone over. She brought real emotion to Rizzo because she had lived more life than the others. And then came the hickey story. During the scene where Rizzo checks her neck in the mirror and jokes about having so many hickeys people would think she was a leper, those marks were real. Jeff Conaway had given her those hickeys during their private time off set. Stockard later admitted Jeff was by far the most sexually charged person on set. She even joked that the trailer would be shaking during lunch. The director noticed the hickeys and decided to keep them in the movie. But not everyone was happy. Some cast members felt uncomfortable with how personal things were getting. The set was full of real-life flings, and it wasn't always professional. The problems didn't stop there. When Grease hit theaters in June 1978, feminist groups were furious. In the song Summer Nights, Kennedy asked Danny, did she put up a fight? Critics said this promoted date rape culture, treating it like a joke. Another moment that drew anger was when Rizzo mocked Sandy for being a virgin. People felt the movie told girls they needed to change to be liked. The Los Angeles Times even called it anti-feminist. Activists organized boycotts, warning parents that the film sent dangerous messages about consent. But the movie still made nearly $400 million worldwide. Things got even messier overseas. In 1979, Indonesia released a censored version of Grease. The government removed 8 minutes from the film. They didn't want scenes that hinted at sex, especially the part where Travolta danced with plastic wrap in the greased lightning scene. That was actually a reference to birth control, which wasn't acceptable in that country. Lines like "the chicks'll cream" and "she's a real pussy wagon" were also cut. Other countries like Malaysia and the Philippines followed Indonesia's lead. The edits showed just how differently American pop culture clashed with traditional values in other parts of the world. In 2016, Fox aired a live version of Grease for television, but they changed a lot of the lyrics. "The chicks'll cream" became "the chicks'll scream." "Pussy wagon" turned into "dragon wagon," and "lacy lingerie" was replaced with "wedding bouquet." Fans weren't happy. Over 50,000 tweets used the hashtag #BringBackDirtyGrease. People felt like the rebellious energy was being erased. Ironically, Fox kept the "did she put up a fight" line, the one that had sparked the most anger back in 1978. This new version attracted over 12 million viewers, but also showed how much culture had shifted between generations. Behind the glamour, the parties were wild. Producer Alan Carr threw expensive and risky parties during filming in 1977. One party in Beverly Hills ended badly when a young cast member had to be rushed to the hospital. Drugs like cocaine and Quaaludes were said to be everywhere. Carr, known for his colorful robes and big personality, even hosted a party for Truman Capote inside an old jail. These events were kept quiet to protect the film's clean image, but everyone in Hollywood knew what was going on. Grease ended up making almost $100 million just in the U.S. that year. But Carr's health declined later, and he died in 1999 from liver cancer at the age of 62. Many believed his lifestyle played a part. In 1998, when Paramount re-released Grease for its 20th anniversary, parent groups across America fought back. The Parents Television Council led protests, saying the film encouraged teen sex and bad behavior. Over 200 theaters had to put up warnings, and in some states, kids under 17 needed an adult to get in, even though it had a PG rating. In Texas, 15 theaters refused to show it at all. The strange part was, the backlash made the movie even more popular. Paramount had only hoped to make $5 million, but it ended up earning over $15 million. Some parents even brought their kids to see what the fuss was about. In July 2015, something strange happened to the director of Grease, Randall Kleiser. Out of nowhere, he saw his face pop up in the trailer of a shocking documentary about pedophiles in Hollywood. The film was called An Open Secret. Kleiser had nothing to do with it, but years ago, back in 1999, he had briefly worked on a project called Royal Standard. That show was produced by a company named Digital Entertainment Network, which later turned out to be run by Mark Collins Rector, a convicted sex offender. Kleiser wasn't involved in any crimes, not even close, but just 2 seconds of him showing up in the trailer caused a storm. His lawyer told the filmmakers to remove his image immediately. Instead, the producer, Gabe Hoffman, doubled down and added Kleiser's name on screen, making the connection even louder. What started as a quick legal request turned into a public mess, and it left Kleiser stuck in the middle of a controversy he never asked for. Around the same time Grease was filming, something dangerous was happening behind the scenes. Annette Charles, the actress who played the wild and fearless Cha-Cha, was hiding a life-threatening secret. During the famous drag race scene by the Los Angeles River, she was in terrible pain. She had an ectopic pregnancy, which meant the embryo was growing outside her uterus. It was extremely dangerous, but she refused to stop filming. Even though her doctor said she could do the scene, the pain was overwhelming. If you look closely, you can see her leaning against cars during the race, trying to hold herself together. The moment the director yelled, "Cut," she was rushed straight to the hospital for emergency surgery. She had risked her life just to finish one scene, and no one knew the full story until years later when she finally shared it. Then there was the flying car ending. In the original 1970 1978 Grease. The moment when Danny and Sandy suddenly fly away in their car left many people scratching their heads. Some fans said it was symbolic. Some thought it meant Sandy had died. Others believed it was just a dream. But what many people don't know is that Grease 2, which came out in 1982, nearly made the same exact mistake. In the original script, Michael and Stephanie were supposed to ride a motorcycle into the sky. They even filmed the scene. But in the end, the director realized it didn't feel right and cut it. That one decision probably saved the sequel from years of confusion and strange theories. Even the songs in Grease sparked battles. One of the most iconic scenes was the slumber party where the girls sing, "Look at me, I'm Sandra Dee." It almost got cut because executives were nervous about how it joked about virginity. There were several versions of this scene. One had the girls in sexy lingerie doing a bold dance, but that one was never released. When the film aired on TV in the US and UK, stations often removed parts of the song or cut the entire scene. British TV even censored the word "fongoul," which was thought to mean something rude. Despite all this, the scene survived. Test audiences loved it, and their laughter was enough to overpower the worries of studio executives. It showed how powerful audience reaction could be back in the late 1970s. Then there was the costume that became more than just clothing. When Olivia Newton-John appeared at the end of the movie in tight black pants and a fitted top, it changed everything. But what no one saw was how risky that outfit really was. The pants were made from real 1950s shark skin, and they were the only pair the costume team had. The zipper didn't work, so every morning Olivia had to be sewn into them. One tear would have ruined the entire look. Years later, in 2019, she auctioned off that outfit to raise money for her cancer foundation. It sold for $162,000. The buyer turned out to be Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. She said those pants inspired her to create her famous leggings brand. After Olivia's death in August 2022, the pants were placed in a frame at the Spanx headquarters as a tribute. From a costume with a broken zipper to a billion-dollar business inspiration, the journey of those pants told its own powerful story. Before Olivia passed away, she shared one last memory that fans never got to see. After she filmed the heartbreaking song "Hopelessly Devoted to You," she also shot an emotional scene that showed Sandy in a raw, vulnerable state. But the director, Randall Kleiser, said they removed it because it slowed down the pacing before the finale. He mentioned this during a panel in 2018, when the movie turned 40. Some editors said the footage was gone forever. In the 1970s, it was common for studios to reuse film reels to save money. But a report in 2010 suggested that some of those lost scenes might still be sitting in an archive somewhere. Fans have never stopped wondering. The idea of a deleted moment, hiding in the dark, waiting to be discovered, has become part of the film's legend. Just like the flying car or Sandy's transformation, it's one more layer in a movie that refuses to fade.